Am I live? Are we recording this? Okay. Hi, I am Jason Bollinger. I will be your philosopher this semester. We are, this semester we're going to be teaching ethics. We are doing it in the compressed summer format, which is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 9 a.m. to 10:40 a.m. But wait, there's more. There's more of a complication having to do with COVID-19. All of it will be online. So normally we would be meeting in person at 9 a.m. every morning. We would be trading various sorts of viruses together and having conversations. But in to get back within 24 to 48 hours if you reach me there. So my office hours, of course, are a little complicated given COVID. So if you need to talk to me via office, if you need to talk to me and schedule office hours, do that by appointment, email me, and we will set up some one-on-one time, maybe not in person. But I will give you my I promise I will give you my full attention as best I can via email, maybe even a phone call. I could be convinced of that. Assuming you don't share my phone number with others. So, okay. So let's talk a little bit about what this course is. This class is an introductory survey of basic issues and approaches in the field of ethics. We'll talk about what that means in a little bit, with the aim of showing the relevance of philosophical inquiry to contemporary moral concerns. Questions concerning the good life, the nature and content of morality, and the relation of the individual to the standards of society will be considered. So, next we proceed to the course objectives. I am responsible for making sure that you learn every aspect of these course objectives, but not just that. I am responsible for making sure that you are graded on every aspect of these course objectives. So that changes, that ups the stakes considerably. So let's go over those course objectives one at a time. They will come back to haunt you. Come back to haunt both of us. Okay, the course objectives are as follows. You must, by the end of this course, be able to explain basic concepts, positions, and problems within philosophical ethics. You must be able to use vocabulary employed by philosophers of ethics, characterize and critically evaluate arguments for various claims relevant to philosophical ethics and distinguish distinct arguments for the same claim. List central figures in the history of philosophical ethics, identify those figures with their most significant contributions, and explain how those theories can be applied to contemporary issues. Identify the premises and conclusions of an argument. Evaluate an argument in terms of validity and soundness. Construct arguments in a step-by-step fashion. Criticize or defend some thesis pertinent to philosophical ethics. There is one required text for this course. It is Exploring Ethics, an Introductory Anthology, the 5th edition, edited by Stephen M. Kahn. Normally at this point, I would hold up a copy of the required text, and I would wave it around like this. Unfortunately, due to some sort of snafu, I don't have a copy of the 5th edition of Exploring Ethics. I expect that to be resolved within the next couple of days, but I am told that it is available at the bookstore, so you should be able to go and get it. I discovered this on a Sunday. They're not open today. I expect to be invading them sometime tomorrow to demand my copy. But anyway, get a copy. Don't follow my example. Follow a better example. Find a copy of Exploring Ethics as soon as you can. You're going to need this book within the next couple of days. Don't go on Amazon and find a deal on it and say, oh, okay, sure, I can have it by June 28th, no problem. No, you're going to need this book right away. There are going to be quizzes over stuff in this book within the next couple of days. This is a compressed summer class. There are no training wheels. There's no grace period. We're going to dive right into it and be reading this stuff right away. So the regular season begins now. These games count. Okay, so let's discuss the class structure. This is where your class comes from, or this is where your grade, your final grade will come from. Course grades will be based on 4 tests, 19 quizzes, 19 quizzes, the course objectives worksheet, and attendance. The quizzes, you will take 19 quizzes total. I will drop the 2 lowest quiz grades, so your final quiz grade will consist of your 17 highest grades times 5 each. That equals 75 points. Your tests will be 45 points each times 4. That's 180 points possible. Your course objectives worksheet, what in the world is that? We'll get to that in a little bit. That is worth 20 points. And your attendance, that is you making an effort to appear as though you are following the lectures, that will amount to 15 points possible. That is a total of 300 points. So the grade ranges then are as follows. So okay. Let me make it clear that your quizzes, tests, course objectives, worksheet, and attendance are the ways to pass this class. I don't give extra credit. I don't give delayed grades. I don't give PRs. I don't even know what PRs are, but I'm told I'm not allowed to give them. The only way you're going to pass this class is if you do well in your quizzes, your tests, your course objectives, worksheet, and your attendance. I appreciate that people go through life crises at some points throughout their semester. I feel deeply for them, for those people. I always do. If you find yourself, for whatever reason, not being able to fulfill the requirements of this course, please do yourself a favor and withdraw from the course. It looks way better in your GPA that you withdrew from a course than it does that you got an F. And people are always surprised that I give Fs. Yes, I give Fs. I give Fs every semester. Okay, so quizzes, tests, course objectives, worksheet, and attendance are the 4 elements of your grade. Let's go over each of those in some detail. Quizzes will be multiple choice format and will cover the articles assigned for that day. They will be open book and open notes. The quizzes normally, under normal circumstances, I give them live and in class, but that's obviously not going to work since there is no live and in class. What's going to happen is I am going to post the quizzes on Blackboard the night before the discussion of the article. So let's say that you have a quiz. Let's say, there's not a quiz tomorrow, but there will be a quiz Tuesday, right? So what will happen is sometime tomorrow in the early evening, I will post a quiz up on Blackboard, right? The quiz is open book and open notes. It's 5 questions long. You are responsible for going up and filling out that quiz, completing the quiz, and getting it into me. You have until class starts on Tuesday morning to get it into me, right? So you have until the beginning of class to get it into me. Now, the quizzes will be over the readings that are assigned for that day. If you flash forward in your syllabus, thank you to my lovely assistant Beth. If you flash forward in your syllabus, you will see that there is a class schedule that lays out all of the readings that we're going to be covering. Right? Notice that on okay. We're going to make some adjustments here. Notice that on 610, for instance, there is a quiz on Mill utilitarianism, right? Page 98 to 105. Now that quiz, that means that you are responsible for turning that quiz into me by class time on that day. So I will post the quiz the night before. You fill out the quiz, you get it into me, and then on the 10th, I will post a lecture on Mill, what utilitarianism is. So
Professor Bollinger, this means I'm going to be quizzed on the article before I've heard your lecture.
Yes.
Just from reading.
Yes. You are going to be quizzed on the article. Good point, lovely assistant Beth. Yes, you are going to be quizzed on the article before you hear the lecture. Now, why do I do it this way? Wouldn't grades go up if I lectured first and then gave the quiz? Well, yes. But then nobody would ever read the article. And one of the things that we strive to do here at Forest Park Community College is in the philosophy department anyway, we would like you to encourage, in fact, we demand that you read original sources, right? So by giving the quiz first, I require you to read Mill's utilitarianism article to prepare for the quiz, right? And that puts you in a better spot to be able to engage in the lecture and get more out of it. Okay. Got it. Pause it for a second, would you? Okay. So quizzes will be multiple choice format, and we'll cover the articles assigned for that day. They will be open book, open notes. They will be posted on Blackboard the night before class. They will be submitted and graded online. The quiz, this is very important. The quiz questions will be based on reading questions, which I will make available on Blackboard no later than the evening prior to the quiz. If you go up to Blackboard, you will see a link that says reading questions. If you open that, there will be 10 reading questions pertinent to the article assigned for that day. Okay? If you can read the article assigned for that day and you know the answer to all the reading questions, you're going to be in good shape to take the quiz. Okay? The quiz will be based on some of those reading questions. There will be usually 10 reading questions, but only 5 quiz questions. So, but the bottom line is, if you can, if you think you know what the answers is to all the reading questions, you're in good shape to do well on the quiz. In figuring your final grade for the whole course, I will drop the 2 lowest quiz scores, which means your course grade will consist of your 17 highest quiz scores. There's a typo, right? Right, they'll take 19 quizzes total. I'll drop the 2 lowest quizzes. So you'll your 17 highest quiz scores will contribute to your grade. Now, this is very important because quizzes cannot be made up under any circumstances. If you have to miss a class, if you're going on vacation, if somebody dies, etc., then your quiz for that day is forfeit. If you miss a class on a quiz day, even if the absence is excused, the missed quiz will have to count as one of your dropped quizzes. After you've taken the quizzes, I will post the correct answers on Blackboard. Please make a note of these quiz questions and the correct answers, since the information may be used again on the tests. We'll get to tests in a second. I think I've never done quizzes on Blackboard before. I think Blackboard might already correct your quizzes and give you the correct answers. I'm not entirely sure about that, but one way or another, you will get the correct answers to your quizzes. So, okay. Okay, those are the daily quizzes. Next, there are tests. Tests will end each of the 4 parts of the class and will cover the material presented in that section of the class. Tests will be posted on Blackboard and due 24 hours later. So, if you skip ahead to your class schedule, you will see that on June 16th there is a test. On June 24th there is a test, and so on and so forth. Those are the days that the tests are due. They will be posted. You have 24 hours to complete them. Tests will consist of true-false questions and fill-in-the-blank questions based on the information given in the quizzes and the lectures. Like the quizzes, the test will be open book and open notes. Okay. So, quizzes, tests. Now we come to the third element of your grade, the course objectives worksheet. This is a handout featuring questions, problems, and definitions related to the course objectives. See above. The worksheet is due by the end of the semester and must be completed to receive a final course grade. So, if you go back to the first page of your syllabus, you will see objectives in the middle of the page. These are the course objectives. Let me tell you a story. I started working this job about 12 years ago. Yeah. I've been here for a while. So after a few years, I was doing fine. You know, I had my syllabus down. I had my quizzes and my tests, and everything was going great. And then one day, a representative of a shadowy administrative body came to me and said, hey, here are some course objectives that you are responsible for putting into your syllabus and grading your students on every aspect of the course objectives, right? I don't know where these come from. I don't know who drafted them. All I know is that I am a soldier and I do what I am told, right? So, looking over these course objectives, I thought, well, hey, I'm already sort of doing these, right? You know, explaining basic concepts in philosophical ethics, using vocabulary employed by philosophers of ethics, check. Characterizing and evaluating arguments, check. Of course, there are some things on these course objectives that I never learned in an intro to philosophy class, let alone an intro to ethics class, like evaluating arguments in terms of validity and soundness, or identifying premises and conclusions of an argument. Those are the sorts of things normally you would do in an intro to logic class or an intro to critical thinking class, and it never would have occurred to me that I was supposed to be teaching them in an ethics class. But I do as I am told. So, my way of covering the ground that wasn't normally being covered by the course objectives is with the course objectives worksheet. The course objectives worksheet is a worksheet that I publish on Blackboard. It is a handout featuring questions, problems, and definitions related to the aspects of the course objectives worksheet, the course objectives that are not otherwise covered. Just to give you a brief recount, the course objectives worksheet is going to consist of definitions, and it's going to consist of a section where you have to identify logical argument forms, and then there is going to be a brief essay where you are going to have to write and defend some philosophical position pertinent to philosophical ethics. So I'm more than happy to give you a variety of topics that you might write on it. Okay? So what's going to happen is there's going to be a class that we're going to need to put aside, to go over the course objectives worksheet. I will give this information exactly once. I expect you to take notes. I expect you to write down the definitions of the words that I give you and reproduce them on the course objectives worksheet. What I don't expect is for somebody to say, oh yeah, I didn't really pay attention during that lecture. Could you go through all of that again? I will not. Now is a good time for you to start making friends with some of your fellow students, even though this is a little more difficult, obviously, since we're not in person. But you might want to just get a name or two in case you miss a class, particularly that class where you go over the course objectives worksheet. And if you, so you might be able to get notes from them, because I am not crazy about doing my job twice. Be here for the course objectives worksheet. Be present for the course objectives worksheet lecture. I guess that isn't such a problem now that we're recording this.
Yeah, does it go away?
No, it doesn't go away. So, hey, the bad attitude I just gave in the last few minutes, forget all that. I couldn't be happier. If you missed the course objectives worksheet lecture, that's fine with me, right? You can just listen to it some other time, right? Okay, so finally we come to attendance. Attendance is always the most controversial part of any syllabus. The attendance grade will be based on, that's right, your attendance. Now, how do I account for attendance during a class that's entirely online? Well, good question. During each online lecture, I give an online password at some random point. Could be anything. Could be right now. For instance, in the middle of the lecture, I might say the attendance password is banana. You are responsible for emailing that password to my campus email within 24 hours of the time the lecture is posted. When I receive your email, I will mark you present for that day. Attendance, just underscore. Attendance is mandatory. Unexcused absences will lower your attendance grade. You have 15 points possible on attendance. So if you miss a class, I might dock you 5 points. But if you miss more than 3 classes, you get an F for the entire course. You have failed to meet the standard of attending. That's the other thing I should point out. I failed to underscore this on the course objectives worksheet issue, that mostly I consider the course objectives worksheet a sort of formality. Once you've heard the lecture, it shouldn't be hard to fill out, but I absolutely have to have it from you or you don't pass the class. So the good news is, if you fill out the easy course objectives worksheet, you get 20 points possible. You get 20 points. If you don't fill it out, you get an F. So, next we have a next on the syllabus. I have a little primer and online classes and how they're going to go. I think they mostly speak for themselves. If you have any confusion about how the online classes are going or about when you're supposed to turn stuff in, please feel free to email me. What I am going to do is I am going to publish all of my online lectures, this one for instance, on YouTube. This apparently, for technical reasons that elude me, this makes it easier for people to stream it on their little devices or whatever. So what I will do is, whenever I publish something on YouTube, I will post a link up on Blackboard, and you can go to that. If for some reason, I don't even know if this is possible, but if for some reason you don't like YouTube, or YouTube isn't, maybe you're banned for life from YouTube or something, I can always post the lectures directly up on Blackboard. It's kind of a pain in the neck, and it takes a while, and not everybody can download it. But if you insist, and that's easiest for you, I'm happy to accommodate. One thing to end on is, I said this again and again, but let me repeat it as often as possible. The daily quizzes are going to be due before class begins. So if Tuesday we talk about Mill, that means that your quiz on Mill is due by 9 a.m. before the class starts on Mill. Okay, some people find that very hard to sort of like conceptualize, but that is the case. So, okay. So, there we have, next we move on to the non-discrimination statements that the administrative powers that be make me put in there. Non-discrimination statement. If you are feeling like you're discriminated against, please contact ftaylor65 at stlcc.edu. Academic appeals procedures. 2 things I want to call to your attention here. One is the accommodation statement. We at Forest Park Community College do everything we can to accommodate students who have any sort of special requirements or any sort of special needs. This means everything from, you have poor eyesight and you need somebody to take notes for you, to, you have ADHD and you need a special sort of testing environment. Any of those kinds of situations where you need special requirements, there is a whole group of people down at the accommodations, down at the Forest Park Access Office, who just sit around all day waiting for people to come down to them with problems that they can fix. So please make access or make use of the Access Office if you need it. The people in the Access Office work very, very hard. They do a great job staying on top of things. They have one weakness. Their one shortcoming is that they do not have ESP. They cannot look into your soul and tell that you need special accommodations. You have to come down and talk to them and explain to them, here are my problems and here's what I need. So please go and talk to them. One thing I want to point out, also in the administrative statements, the statement on academic integrity. This was never an issue for me because you might have noticed that my entire class is built around taking quizzes and tests and giving you very, very few chances to actually write. So the opportunity for you to plagiarize anything is at a minimum, right? Then it was pointed out to me a few years ago that some people were posting some of my quizzes and tests online on some of the cheating sites. You're familiar with them, I'm sure, or you know some. I'm sure you know somebody who's familiar with them. You wouldn't do that, right? But anyway, there are various cheating websites online. If let me remind you that all of the tests and quizzes and all of the materials and notes and everything in this class is the intellectual property of yours truly, of me, or the authors of the book, right? So to post that, to distribute it without prior permission, which I would never give, is breaking the law. It's against the law. Furthermore, if I find out that you have been posting any of my materials online to help your fellow students cheat, I will find you. I will track you down no matter where you are, and I will give you an F for the course. I don't care if it's 5 years later. I can do that, right? I will also report you to the proper authorities, right? So anyway, let's be friends. Don't post any of my materials in my class online. Just, when you're done with the quiz, when you're done with the test, wad it up and throw it away. Don't give it to your boyfriend or your roommate. And God forbid, don't post it online. So, okay, so purpose statements, you have protection, you have confidentiality protection, sexual harassment policy. If you think you're being sexually harassed, that's bad. Please report it with proper authorities. The class cancellation policy, this happens occasionally. Maybe it gets hot, maybe the lights go out, maybe it snows, who knows? Probably not in the summer. But anyway. What?
Or online.
Or online, right. So if you are afraid that maybe there's not school, there are some phone numbers to call there to check if class is canceled. So, okay, this brings us to our class schedule, our reading schedule. So there you go, 6/8, that's tomorrow. That will be, or today if you're seeing this now. That's the introduction. Hello, I'm Jason. Already the next day we are having a quiz on Rachel's, The Challenge of Cultural Relativism. You will already need to come in or be ready on Tuesday, having read The Challenge of Cultural Relativism, having answered the reading questions, and being ready to take a quiz on that. You will, in fact, have to have taken the quiz by the time you log in for class. So that's how the different quizzes and the readings are going to work. It's going to be very, very quick-paced. So please try to keep up. I normally at this time, if we're live in class, I ask students if they've ever taken a philosophy class before, and I try to get a handle on who has read philosophy. I don't see any hands up now because I'm at home. But what I want to warn you all about is that philosophy can be really, really hard. Some of these articles are pretty straightforward. They're okay. Some of the articles are very, very difficult to read. And in fact, they may be difficult in ways that you have never encountered before. We're in some cases going to be dealing with people who have written 100 or even 1,000 years ago, and they're writing about very, very abstract concepts. So this is not going to be light reading. Prepare for every one of these articles. Every one of these articles is relatively short. They're no more than 10 pages, but it's going to be a really, really tough 10 pages. Plan on reading it at least 2 or 3 times to be able to absorb anything, to be able to take a quiz on it. The Rachel's article, the very first one we read, is relatively pretty easy. But after that, Kant, Mill, and Aristotle are all pretty tough. So I have at the very end of the article, or at the very end of the article, the very end of the syllabus, my advice on making it through some of the hardest articles. One, I say prepare, clear all distractions, be prepared for at least 2 hours of unimpeded concentration, whatever that takes. If it takes getting a babysitter, if it takes sequestering yourself to the library, locking yourself in the attic, whatever it takes. Be prepared for at least 2 hours of this getting your undivided attention. Have a dictionary nearby. If you don't know the definition of a word, look it up. Philosophers sometimes use words in a peculiar way, so sometimes a standard dictionary will help. If a standard dictionary doesn't help, make a note of it, bring it up to me. I guess you can't in class. But we do have discussion boards available on Blackboard. That's a great resource if you don't want to email me. If you want to post something on a discussion board and get some help there, I will check those and maybe help you out that way. Read the introduction of the chapter and the reading questions. Get your mind prepared for philosophy. Then read. There's no substitute for reading the chapter carefully. Even if you don't understand it, if parts are terribly confusing, just go past them and come back again later. That's an important part of reading these kinds of articles. Sometimes you're going to encounter a passage or even a paragraph that makes absolutely no sense. Don't get too lost in it. Pass over it. Come back to it later. Then reread. Read the chapter again. Go back to those paragraphs that maybe you didn't get the first time. This time use the reading questions to guide you to the parts of the chapter that are most important to pass the quiz. So the answers to the reading questions appear chronologically throughout the chapter. So the answer to question 1 will appear very near the beginning of the chapter. The answer to the second question a bit past that, and so on. So you can kind of use the reading questions to pull yourself through the chapter. If you've tried all of that and you're still confused, I recommend emailing me. I will not give the answers to specific questions. Don't just ask me, hey, what's the answer to number 4? But I will answer general questions, provide helpful context, and clarify statements. All I ask is that you try this whole procedure before you email, and you try to be as specific as possible in the question that you answer. If you just say to me, I don't get Aristotle. Right? I can't really, what can I do with that question? I can't really answer that question, right? But if you say to me, hey, I don't understand when Kant talks about the difference between a categorical and a hypothetical imperative, I don't really get what he's driving at there. That's the kind of question that I can sink my teeth into and maybe help you out with. Okay? Now, I'm kind of a night owl. I'm generally up until 2 or 3 in the morning, so I'm available via email even after even that late. But I'm a realist. Sometimes I know that you're going to be up even later than that, and I'm not going to be available, and you're going to feel an overwhelming urge to go up to Google and type in, Kant's ethics, right? Proceed with caution. Not all online sources are created equal. Particularly, beware of Wikipedia. Okay, Wikipedia is a great resource if you just want to dip your toe in the water about a subject. But the more specialized a topic gets on Wikipedia, the less reliable the information is. There's exactly one online philosophical source that I endorse, and it is the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy Online. The website is there at the end of the syllabus. There's also a link to it up on Blackboard. If you go up there, it's set up like Wikipedia. There's a searchable database, so you can type in Kant's ethics, and it will take you to an article that is written by an expert in the field. Anything you read on Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy Online, you can trust, you can take to the bank, it's true. Okay. Any questions? I know there aren't. You can't see me. Now's the time that I normally do this. I say, okay, what is ethics? Right? And then a few people in the audience in my class, they raise their hand, they try to define ethics. Right? That doesn't work, and we try to use a Socratic method, which isn't really going to work this way, right? So let's talk a little bit about, just a little bit about what the field of ethics is. Ethics is the branch of philosophy that deals with questions about good and bad and right and wrong. It deals with questions about morality. It deals with questions about virtue. It deals with questions about justice, right? Now, I think so. First of all, there are a few different ways that the term ethics is kind of thrown around. We often speak about ethics with regard to certain kinds of jobs or certain kinds of specific niches, right? For instance, we talk about doctors having certain kinds of ethics, right? Right. A doctor, for instance, is not supposed to have a sexual relationship with a patient, right? That is not against the law, but it's a violation of the ethics of specific to a doctor's profession, right? So there are certain codes of ethics that are specific to a certain kind of to certain kinds of jobs. Lawyers, for instance, lawyers are not supposed to represent this two different sides of the same case, right? That's considered a conflict of interest, right? Are they breaking the law? Do they go to jail? It depends on the situation, but mostly no, they won't. They're just going to be considered bad lawyers and maybe disciplined by the Bar Association, right? As a teacher, I have certain kinds of ethics. Again, I'm not supposed to have certain kinds of romantic relationships with my students. There was a case in Florida where a teacher was giving A's to anybody who turned in their final exam with a $100 bill paperclip to the test, right? This is possibly not against the law, but there's something wrong with it. It's a violation of the code of ethics of the teacher. So we all generally agree there are certain kinds of code of ethics, and by ethics we mean the standard of right and wrong, right? Normal behavior that are specific to certain kinds of jobs. But is there a larger sense of ethics? Is there a sense of ethics that applies to all people everywhere, no matter what their job is? Right? For instance, is it wrong to steal? Right? Is it wrong, if I'm in Walmart and I see something that I want and I have the money for it, but I don't really want to pay for it. Instead, I just like the thrill of stealing, and I just stick it in my pocket and I walk out. Have I done something wrong? And in what sense have I done something wrong? Well, normally this is the point where we talk about morality, right? Morality typically is the set of ethical standards that apply to people simply because of their status as human beings, right? That it doesn't matter what your job is, it doesn't matter how tall you are, it doesn't matter, nothing else matters. There seem to be certain kinds of moral obligations that apply to human beings everywhere, and that it's wrong to steal, it's wrong to kill, it's wrong to rape, it's wrong to hold people against their will, and so on, right? In the field of ethics, in the field of philosophical ethics, what we do is we try to explore what is it that makes certain actions right and certain actions wrong? And are there exceptions? Is there anything that we can say that is 100% absolutely wrong under all circumstances, as opposed to 100% absolutely good under all circumstances? Now, for a lot of people, these questions, not just in ethics, but in philosophy generally, a lot of people poo-poo this and say, oh God, here we go. Philosophers just sort of, jawing on about a bunch of stuff that doesn't really matter. And when it comes to moral decision-making, I think that for the most part, moral decision-making is not that hard. Right? I mean, most of us make pretty good moral decisions without ever really thinking about it. Right? We have a general sense of right and wrong, and it's relatively seldom that those that sense of right and wrong is seriously challenged. But sometimes it is, of course. Consider this scenario. You're a sheriff in the Old West. You have somebody in your jail that you know to be innocent of a crime. You know he didn't do what he's accused of. He's accused of murder. But you know he didn't do it. You were playing cards with him that night. But there's an angry mob gathering outside that want you to turn them over to them. They want you to turn the innocent prisoner over to them so they can lynch him. Right? They don't care that he's innocent. They don't care that you think he's innocent. They think he's guilty. Right? It's going to take a couple weeks for the judge to come back around and clear all of this up. And this mob is gathering outside. And you know this mob. They're a bunch of ruffians. They're a bunch of bullies. And you know that if they don't get what they want, if they don't get this innocent man turned over to them, they're going to go to the other side of town, the prisoner's side of town, and they're going to start a riot. They're going to burn down part of town, and as many as 50 innocent people, women and children included, are going to be killed, right? So you have this dilemma. The prisoner is begging you not to turn him over to the crowd, and not to turn him over to the mob. And you have this dilemma. Do you drag this innocent man out to the lynch mob and let them do what they may, and by doing so, save the 50 innocent people who were going to die in the riot? Or do you lock yourself in the prison? You're safe in the prison. They can't get inside. Do you lock yourself in the prison with the prisoner and let the chips fall where they may outside? Right? Now, this, I have to say, is a pretty easy dilemma for most of my students. Most of my students, with a few exceptions, most of my students would not turn the innocent man over to the mob, and it doesn't matter how many people die outside. They say, no, what's right is right. Turning an innocent man over to the mob is just plain wrong. He didn't do anything. And they come up with a variety of reasons to defend their position. What I want to point out, first of all, before we go any further, is that the nature of philosophy, philosophy being the discipline of asking questions for which, asking important questions for which there is no clear method for arriving at an answer. Part of the nature of philosophy is that as you think about the question, you have to try to invent a way to think about it. You have to come up with some value that you think trumps everything else. And what we see live when I bring this up to a lot of my students, we see various sorts of rationalizations about it. We say, well, you know, for instance, some people think, well, the fact that you're a lawman means that you have a right, you have a duty to uphold the law, and you're violating the law by turning an innocent man over to the mob, right? So some people think, well, by turning an innocent man over to the mob, you're knuckling under to bullies, and they're just going to get the idea that the next time they want you to do what they want you to do, all they have to do is threaten to start a mob, and now you're their puppet, right? So I think by vast majority, I've taken this poll many times over the years, and with a few exceptions, there's always a few people in the class who would turn the angry man over, would turn the innocent man over to the mob, but the vast majority is no way, Jose. So now I present a different case, right? This will involve bad art. Okay, so this bad art represents bear with me. I will walk you through it. So this is a railroad track, right? And there are two ways the railroad track can go, right? The railroad track can go down a tunnel, right, under the river, or it can go over the bridge, over the river. Yes, I was an art major before I switched to philosophy, right? So Now, as you can see with the X's here, the tunnel is shut down. The tunnel is shut down because there is a man way down in the tunnel working on some wiring, right? So that's you. You operate the track. You can switch the track from one to the other. You would never switch it this way because that would doom this man to die, right? Now, oh no, there's an earthquake and a hurricane at the same time. And it takes out the bridge, right? And screaming down the track, there are, on this train, let's just choose a number at random, 50 people. There are 50 people on this train, right? They are headed to certain doom. They're about to go off into the drink. Except you can switch the track. If you switch the track, the train will crash through these little barriers, but the tunnel is otherwise intact. The only hitch is this man will certainly be killed. He has no room to lean up against the wall. There's no way to contact him down inside the tunnel. He will certainly be killed. Now, how many people under these circumstances would switch the track, guaranteeing that one man dies while 50 people live? Well, what you see when I ask this question in class is you see a total reversal, right? Before, in the Old West Sheriff example, there were a couple sheepish hands that went up that, yeah, I would sacrifice the man to save the 50 innocent lives. And what you see in this scenario is, 25 proud hands going up saying, heck yeah, I'd switch the track. Too bad for that one man, but what about all those 50 people, right? Now, the question I want you to consider is, well, what's the difference? 50 people are going to die, and by sacrificing one life, you can save those 50 people. There are a lot of superficial differences. For a lot of people, and maybe this isn't so superficial, but for a lot of people, it doesn't sit well. And I'm one of these people. It doesn't sit well, the idea that I would have to drag the innocent man in the Old West Sheriff example. I would have to drag this friend of mine out to a lynch mob and throw him out, right? There seems to be a deep betrayal there. This seems a lot more clinical, right? This is just I just switch a lever and and somebody is killed, and it doesn't, it's impersonal, right? Is there a difference? Some people, there are a variety of ways of thinking about this. Some people think there is no difference, or at least the differences between the two don't amount to any serious moral difference. What we are going to be talking about over the next couple of weeks in the first part of ethics is we are going to be talking about a few different approaches to these kinds of fundamental decision making. These kinds of fundamental moral decision making. In the first case, we are going to be talking about a certain philosophy called utilitarianism that says that an act is good to the degree it promotes happiness, and the more people that are made happy, the better. So if we have to sacrifice one person to make people happy, well, too bad for that one person. Other people like Immanuel Kant are going to say that we may never, under any circumstances, sacrifice people without their permission. Better that the whole universe, every human being inside of it die, right? So, what we are going to read first, however, is we are going to read James Rachel's talking about cultural relativism, and talking about whether or not there are moral facts to be known, and we are all familiar with the fact that what one group of people for one side of the world believe about morality and what is good and what is bad changes differently from place to place. And some people, the cultural relativists, for instance, think, well, this proves that there is no universal objective moral truth. And James Rachels is going to address that issue specifically. So, okay. Well, read James Rachels for I guess Tuesday, right? And be ready to take a quiz take the quiz on that before you log in to read my great lecture or to hear my great lecture. So, okay, thanks a lot, everybody. If you have any questions or any confusions about anything, I know this is quite an adjustment for a lot of people, so feel free to email me. So, okay, night, everybody.